Tervetuloa kaikki. Ihanaa, että teistä jotkut on jaksanut herätä ja hypätä metroon tai kävellä tänne paikan päälle myös. Ja hei myös kaikille siellä live-streamillä. So hey, welcome to Good Hair Day 2020. Nice to see some of you here. And then the rest of you hopefully are getting up at home and tuning into the live stream. So about today's session, we have first a discussion by us, the Good Hair Day Collective, and then we have a discussion about joy, and then we have a hair talk by AKATEMIA. And as you know, the whole morning session will be in English and the afternoon session in Finnish. And I will not go more into the theme as we're about to talk about it with Good Hair Day team, Mikaela, Akunna, Paloma, and myself, Saida. So welcome, nice to see you here.
Okay, so first we're gonna have a little discussion by us, the Good Hair Day Collective, about this year's Good Hair Day and Good Hair Day in general. But let's start with I would like to welcome you also from my behalf to the event today, and it's so nice to have this live stream so that as many people can participate as possible. And about Good Hair Day, Good Hair Day is a collective and a movement that is anti-racist, and we build everything we do on to 3 pillars, which are positive representation, community, and well-being, and empowerment. So basically, would you like to explain a bit about anti-racism that Good Hair Day does, Mikaela?
Yes, absolutely. I think for us, in a sense, representing Afro-Finns and Afro-Finnishness, which for us actually means anybody in Finland from the African continent or any kind of connection to the African continent. So both people who are born here or who have recently moved here for love, for work, because of a humanitarian situation. That's to us is the Afro-Finnish community. And there's many ways to do anti-racist work, and I think for us it's really about doing it for us by us, and more from a self-care point of view. How are we able to express joy? How are we able to basically survive in society? So we're really doing anti-racist work, not so much for the majority population, not so much for white people, but we are doing anti-racist work for us to, in a sense, decolonize also our minds and just be able to feel joy and be happy. I feel like that's our way of doing anti-racism work, really. And there are different ways to do anti-racist work, but this is how we have chosen to do it, really, through our pillars, which we'll talk about a little bit more here. But yeah, that would be it in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with hope and sort of joy, hope, as well as giving chances for positive representation. And would you like to explain a bit about that?
Positive representation for us is both how we're seen, but how we feel as well. So like Akunna was saying, it's based on hope, but also dreams, and us changing the narrative, changing the stories of what are told about us as Afro-Finns, or Finland in general of this time that we're living in history. And with the Good Hair Day event, we're really claiming this space, taking this space, telling our stories. And this year, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, our event is a little bit different than normally. Normally, we would have Afro-Finnish vendors, makers. There would be a lot more workshops, one-on-one sessions, maybe even group sessions. But today, it's the panel. But maybe the pandemic brings us another good experience of live streaming, because we've heard a lot from other Afro-Finns living further out from Helsinki that they would love to attend the event. So hopefully today they are part of our event as well. And maybe also the positive representation, one of our tools is our social media. So there we use a lot of images and videos, and we try to really show the diversity of our community and the diversity within, uplifting those who are more marginalized, but also giving our followers and our community a chance to dream big. Like those who are younger maybe seek for different professions that they might not see in the daily life, or their school guidance might not take them that way, but giving that opportunity to see role models or representations of our community up here on the stage or on our social media. So that for us is positive representation.
And what about, I think it ties really well, the positive representation as with empowerment. Can you maybe, Paloma, explain a bit more about that? One sec.
Hello.
Okay, here we go.
Some technical difficulties. Yes, so positive representation and empowerment are kind of linked together. For us, empowerment is a process of personal growth and with the desire and ability to serve oneself in the best way possible. And I think Good Hair Day as an event is a perfect example of how we feel very empowered when we see a space filled with Black and brown bodies, where we don't have to make ourselves smaller or bigger or any way. And it's very uplifting in a sense. It's because us as Afro-Finns, we face discrimination and racism on a daily basis. So that is why spaces like these are very needed here in Finland. And it's very empowering. Yeah.
And the last pillar that we build our work on is on community. And our goal is really to give space for community building, as well as try to foster these kinds of safe spaces that this one is, and as well to have that kind of empowering and uplifting experiences with your community. Is it then that you're an immigrant or you're mixed or however you are Afro-Finnish, this could be a space for you. And as well as we try to do it in our events, we also try to sort of foster a sense of community, at least online in our social medias. And we think that as well as Mikaela and Paloma and Saida were talking a bit about also self-care, we also believe largely in community care. And from that, I think it would be good to talk about the theme of this year's Good Hair Day, which is wellness. And why did we choose this theme? Could anyone elaborate?
I think there are plenty of reasons. We had thought about well-being already previously as part of a continuation of our series of Good Hair Day topics. And looking at this year and especially how heavy spring has been, we decided that we would still go on with our events, and we chose well-being not only for physical well-being, but mental well-being and the well-being of our community as well. And I think we went back and forth whether to have this event or not, have it only live, have it like streamed or live, and what combo, but this is what we came to. And I think we can talk more about the themes of joy and resilience that we chose for this year too.
Yeah, I'm first of all, I'm really happy that we had this event in spite of the situation. And I think this year, with the Black Lives Matter movement, the global movement that's happening all over the world, in a sense, it's kind of very twofold for me. I don't know how you all feel. But at the same time, I feel so seen. I feel like my experiences are being listened to. People who are more privileged have been open to have a conversation and to listen and to learn on a whole different level. But at the same time, it's like trauma coming from all windows and doors, and social media full of kind of reminders of our trauma. And that's why I'm really happy about this year's theme, to where we can kind of just focus on, again, healing and self-care and wellness, even if it's just for one day and one event. And I feel like it's so important also to remember to take care of ourselves. So this year, to me, it's been very twofold in that sense. I don't know how you all feel.
Yeah, that is something for me. I don't know about you as well, but this year, as rough as it has been, resting is something that I've really had to learn to do. And what type of resting is good for me, and so on. So I've found kind of different ways to rest and just kind of take a break, because at the same time, as you said about the social media, you kind of want to be there, you kind of want to see what's going on, but at the same time, it's very rough. So yeah, resting is something that I've kind of had to learn how to do.
And I think in addition, most of us do some other kind of work related to these topics of racism or structural racism, society, so forth. So we also felt that in the midst of discussing and learning about all these issues surrounding the Black Lives Matter movement and so forth, and the changes it's bringing in Finland, we want to offer our community also a place where you can take a breather, discuss some other topics, and take care of your well-being.
Yeah, I definitely, from my part, feel like there's been this collective grief, and I definitely felt it, and I think it's something that even yesterday became apparent again. So it's not even just a singular event, but there's like this whole spring and summer has been really rough for many of us, I think. And especially then when we had this theme of well-being, we had these discussions of joy and resilience, we were like, yeah, we need to do it still. We really need to do it. And we need to have these discussions about what is Black joy, what is resilience for us, and how does it show up in our lives. And I think for many of us, it has been sort of also this reflection of what is it really now?
Yeah, because we don't know. I think we really have to go out here in this world being tough all the time, kind of where do we have those spaces to be vulnerable and to share joy with each other and happiness with each other when we don't really have these spaces where we collectively come together, first of all, and having to always be tough all the time. That's actually super, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. So when do we then, we have to create these spaces where we can be vulnerable and where we can freely kind of be ourselves and feel joy and feel happiness and yeah.
Get recharged.
Yeah. And let go, just breathe.
And I also feel, as being part of the African diaspora, many of us are missing that what we would use to plenish our reserves and resilience, like going home, visiting family, traveling, being more closer to the equator by the sun. Like, definitely those things in my life, personal life, are missing, and it's something that I use to build my resilience throughout the year, is that connection with my family worldwide. So I'm finding that extremely hard as well.
Well, I want to ask you also about the sort of conversations we'll be having on this stage today. What does joy mean to you?
See, we don't even know.
Yeah, you don't even know.
It's hard. Family, for me, is being around water. I know it sounds cliche for some people, but water has been always a part of my life somehow. So either swimming, being near it. I live near water, so that helps a lot now, especially during the pandemic while we had to stay inside. I got to see, the water, so that kind of calms me down. But I think family, friends, good hair day, our community, obviously.
Yeah. I feel like to be able to be free, like to be able to fully, authentically be myself. And honestly, I don't even know what that looks like because it's so, they're like really small moments where I'm like where I'm not performing in this world. You know, going out there, you have your job where you're kind of performing a certain role or character, then you have, you know, just like when are those moments of joy when I'm just fully authentically myself? And for me, I'm still very much working on that. And I feel like these events like Good Hair Day for me are those few moments throughout the year where I feel that kind of joy.
Yeah, I think for me, it's quite similar. There's like small moments of joy throughout my everyday life, definitely. But I have tried to actually find more spaces and places and people. For example, I think now, if I would say like, what does it mean to me? I would say like a hug from some kid I love. Like really, that's joy. That's pure joy there. If you're really happy and you're happy to see each other, that's something. But I think that's the kind of moment that I would describe as joy for me.
Yeah, I think I try to find joy in every day and joy in little things. For me, definitely family, my kids, but then also having people over and entertaining and everything that's involved with that. So community really makes me happy. And I guess partly why I've been involved with Good Hair Day for so long is that wherever I've lived in the world, I've always found, you know, places that are special for me, places that I can go hang out with, find myself and like take away that work me or whatever it is and focus on that joy of that community. So I feel like events like Good Hair Day, I'm so happy to see that there's so many more. Like yesterday was the Mellow Yellow Club and, you know, so many more events that are happening, being organized by Afro Finns and people of color in Finland that are maybe bringing those pockets of joy to others.
Thank you, guys. I'm so happy to be here and I'm so excited. We're gonna have this joy discussion. We're gonna continue with that theme next as well, but we're gonna set up real quickly and come back. And I would like to thank all of you, the Good Hair Day Collective, for getting this event actually happening this year because it's been a thing to organize it. But we're here and we ain't going nowhere.
No, we ain't.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just scrolling on my phone because I wanted to remind people about the safer space that we have. So as we already mentioned earlier, Good Hair Day aims to be a safer space. So please don't assume ethnicity, culture, sexuality, gender, class, history of others. Respect other people's physical and emotional boundaries. Get consent before touching anyone, especially during these times. Also, if you feel uncomfortable about anything, please feel to contact one of our volunteers. We're all wearing the Good Hair Day shirts, as well as give space for the people that Good Hair Day was created for. So also on the live stream for people commenting and asking questions, maybe give space for the Afro Finns to share their questions and have it be asked from the panelists. And be responsible for your own actions and aware that your actions have an effect on others. Also have fun. Thank you and welcome. And I would like to call on stage for our discussion on joy, our panelists Aquilin, Sean, and Akuna. I'm blanking out on the third name. Help me.
Fiona.
Fiona, if you're here, please join us on stage. And unfortunately, our moderator Takura could not be here, so Akuna will be moderating the session on joy. Thank you.
voit mennä tuohon keskelle. Sä voit mennä keskelle, mä voin ottaa straight. Se on varmaan helppoa, että pääset vaan täältä. Ottakaa vettä. We need some water too.
Okay. So now we're gonna be discussing joy a bit more, and here are my wonderful panelists. Thank you so much for being here and taking some time off for this. I'm so excited. Would you like me to introduce you, or would you like to introduce yourselves? I can also introduce you.
You can introduce.
Okay, let's do it. So basically, here we have Fiona Musanga, and she is a Rwandese filmmaker, writer, photographer, and an activist, currently based in Turku in Finland. She graduated from Turku Classical Upper Secondary School with a diploma in acting, and later moving on to study filmmaking at the Academy of Moving People and Images, an independent film school in Helsinki. She's also 1/3 of the Ubuntu Film Club, which is a collective that hosts film screenings and panel discussions monthly all around Helsinki. Musanga has also made 2 short films titled A Lonely and Don't Worry, and is currently writing a script for her debut feature film. Wow, thank you for being here. Then we also have Aqualine, who is a Kenyan-born Finnish-bred actor, poetess, and a writer. She is well known for penning down a poem titled To Girls with Hair Like That of a Wild Forest at the age of 17. Her own written work can be found on Affinity Magazine, Dear Girlfriend, and Face to Face Africa. Then we have Sean Huff, who is the captain of Susijengi and a professional basketballer at Helsinki Seagulls, and a husband and a father of 2. He was born and grew up in Helsinki. His father is a suomalaistunut African American and his mother a Finn. Sean moved to the States when he was 20 to play basketball and to study criminology, sociology, and psychology. He graduated in 2008 and has played professionally across Europe until 2019, when he moved back to Finland with his family. Thank you so much for all of you for being here.
Thank you.
So let's start with a easy question. Do you think black joy is radical? And if you do, why or why not?
Is this on? Okay, yes, good. For me, no, I don't. I don't think it's radical. It can be loud at times, maybe, but not radical. I feel like it's genuine. That it really comes from the heart. When black people are together and we have fun, it's just something. I feel like it's just pure joy, and you can really see it. And people don't hold back. They just let it out. They let it come out from their heart and their soul. And for me, it's just it's pure.
For me, the writer in me kind of had to go look at the difference between happiness and joy, because the difference of words just keeps me up at night. And the way I see it, for me, it's dependent on who is behind it. Because I often feel like, as black people, if something is, plastered or dubbed with black, then ultimately we project this idea that it's progressive or it's radical. So for me, I had to investigate and look into who is behind this, who is the pioneer of it. Because often what happens with, a lot of movements or social movements is, for instance, the self-care movement it's well-meaning, but then it's co-opted by, capitalism, for instance. We have these companies saying, if you buy these scented candles, that's self-care, which kind of defeats the entire purpose of the original intention. So for me, it's dependent on who is behind it. If it's black people, then it is radical. But if it's a capitalistic, there's a capitalistic agenda, then it isn't radical.
I think for me, it's a little bit of both. It is radical, but it's also not. When it's coming from, the inside, and when it's Black people experiencing the joy, it's not a conscious radical decision, I'm gonna be joyful today type of thing, but from the outside looking in, then it might seem radical, it might seem like it's something that's very foreign, but that I think is more of looking at it from the outside instead of just understanding that joy is a human thing. There's no difference if it's black or white or brown.
I really like the perspectives that you're giving. I sort of have myself similar ideas of like it's not so straightforward maybe that if joy is radical or not, but it's much more layered, I guess. Well, the reason why we also wanted to sort of have this discussion and what you sort of already implied to is this sort of idea of loudness and sort of Black or African descent fun being sort of a nuisance, even though it really isn't. And that's when I look at it and I'm like, oh, it's sort of radical and fighting off that stereotype and just having your fun and enjoyment and living your life like nothing special, basically. But then I like the way you look at it sort of like it's just pure. There's nothing radical, and what you said about being just, it's a human thing to experience joy. And I think those are some important perspectives. What about what brings you personally joy?
Well, for me, it's, just seeing joy in my kids, small things, just seeing the blink in their eyes, kind of when they enjoy small stuff, it really makes me smile. Socializing with people I love, family, being around. And sometimes it can just be, the freedom of not having time restraints or schedule, just, not having to be anywhere. And my craft, playing basketball is something I wanted to do as a kid. Essentially, it's a game. I'm playing a game, for a living, and it's something that I really love. I poured everything into it since a young age, and it's something that I get a lot of joy out of as well.
Well, for me, I think I feel the most joy when I can just be, and there's really no gaze, and I don't really have to explain myself. I can just show up in this world as I am, no expectations, just knowing that, as I am in my skin, I am worthy. And then the second thing is when there is community care, because, last year was Good Hair Day's theme, community. And when there's that sense, when I'm around my friends and there is just that love, that, compassion that you get, because as human beings, we're social beings. So we need to be around people. So those are two things for me.
Being around people definitely makes me joyful. Connecting with people, events like this and opportunities like this where people are given the chance to just have a conversation and have something really important to talk about and to open a discussion. This makes me really happy. Being right here is very joyful for me. Also my craft, writing and films, and those are little things that also make me very joyful.
Yeah, I think you're all quite special in that way, that you have a craft that you love and that also brings you joy. Is it then art or playing sports as a profession? I think it's kind of cool that you all have some kind of outlet as well as it bringing you also joy. It's really cool and awesome. I'm really happy for you guys. And that makes me actually feel joy, that I know that people have something that they worked hard for and they are working hard for it and they're sort of achieving their dreams. That's something that I actually, weirdly, I get most joy of other people's successes and sort of them being empowered and doing what they desire, which is something that I see in all of you that makes me quite happy. What about, have you heard of this concept of Black boy joy? And if you have, or if you haven't, but I thought we could maybe touch up on it quite quickly and talk about why is it a thing even, and is it something that we should talk about also in Finland?
I hadn't heard about it actually. I had to Google it, so I mean, I have some ideas about it, but I'd like to pass it forward and maybe come back to it.
I also, I have heard of it, but again, I had to go back and look the source, where did this come from? Because like I was having this conversation backstage with Fiona. I think with social media, it's so easy to forget where something actually, the original idea, what was the source. And for me, like there isn't really any specific creator tied to this as opposed to Black Girl Magic. But Chance the Rapper is somehow a pioneer for this. In terms of the Finnish context, I personally feel that in Finnish society, people, this society doesn't hold space for people to feel emotions that go outside the mellow, paradigm. And for me, one thing is that if somebody, for instance, is crying, if somebody is laughing so hard, like in public, like me and my friends, we've been told, like, hey, do you understand this is a public place? Can you keep it down? And my thing is, but it's laughter. Yeah. Like, are you socially policing how I'm emoting myself? But then when it comes to, when you add, the masculinity, because it's, the boy, I don't really, and you add the blackness, then it takes like a whole other form. There's a Finnishness, blackness, and masculinity. So it's very layered for me, and I don't feel I can really speak because I don't really have that experience as opposed to somebody like you.
Yeah, I mean, this was kind of new to me. I mean, all experiences are subjective to know who you are, and when I Google things like this, all of a sudden I feel extremely lucky because as a kid I was emotional. I cried a lot about silly things and stuff like that. But I also understand how important it was for me to have a dad with emotional intelligence who was able to accept it, and it was fine. I was a boy, but I was still allowed to cry. I wasn't told, you're a boy, don't cry or anything like that. And I feel like that it kind of allowed me to be myself. Also, I think, advantages of, being in sport is men are allowed to cry in sports. It's not, it's not a big deal, in sports. So I think this question taught me, more the kind of how lucky I've been, growing up and being, having that chance to be myself, because all of us don't have that chance. And I feel like it's important for all of us to, do what we can to, break down these barriers where also, little boys, especially black boys, are allowed to show emotion. They can be themselves. They don't have to be anybody else.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that needs to be talked about. And I think specifically black boy joy, because black boys aren't allowed to be boys. They are treated as men. So that's also a very important thing to, there's so many layers. There's the masculinity layer, there's the blackness layer, and then there's also the age layer type of thing, that too. And I think it's you can have like an entire event about that itself. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I think there's definitely this phenomenon of you being like a cute boy who is just having fun, and then all of a sudden people start treating you like a scary man or aggressive or something like this. So I think that's something that how I personally, with two brothers who I love very much, look at Black Boy Joy it's important, because there is that point where people start to be treated, maybe not in their families, but in the outside world, not as children anymore even. But I think it's cool that you learned something from this also, and that I think those kinds of realizations that you have when you're like, you read something and you're like, wow, like I'm so lucky, like I really had the best parents, or whoever was in your life, is it then friends or whatever. I think that's also like a way to reflect on our own joy and on our own lives, definitely. and I think that's something that you could have a whole day. Like you could have that as the theme of a whole day, and not just as one question of this. And you said a little bit about what is joy to you, but I want to ask you also, like, if there's anything in your everyday lives that you actually actively seek joy, or do it in a way that it doesn't just appear. I think a couple of you said about friends and family, but is there anything you do to actively seek these moments of joy?
I think for me, with everything that's been going on this year specifically, I've realized not to tie in my identity to the job that I do. So carving out an identity for myself outside of that. So for instance, if it's bread making that I want to learn, then I'll do that because it just brings me joy. Not because I'm making money out of it or because I'm a great bread maker, but just because it just makes me happy, like kneading dough makes me happy. Yeah.
That's funny. I've also started to paint during this spring and summer, and you know, it's something I'm not very good at specifically, or the stuff that I use aren't like good quality or anything, but just to do something with your hands that isn't really like, you don't have to think much or do anything, but you're just creating something, even if it's not like, oh, I'm gonna be an artist and sell this painting. Just to be creative, finding, like for me, I've tried to find new pockets of sort of creativeness in my own life and realize that they bring me quite a lot of joy.
For me, it's, I mean, being a professional athlete, movement brings me joy. Moving, you know, exercising, then just playing basketball is something that across my life, you know, no matter what happened, you know, outside the lines, I was always able to kind of, you know, when I jumped on the court, I was able to forget everything and just kind of enjoy the moment, and I could leave everything behind. It's kind of been sanctuary for me in a way, you know, to escape all the troubles, you know, that life may bring. It's, you know, it's a game, it's simple, but, you know, there's little things you can take out of it, you know, teamwork, working together, and, you know, respecting each other, no matter how people look, no matter who they are. You know, they're your teammates, you're working towards a common goal, and it kind of, you know, and this just, it's just kind of the joy of movement and, you know, getting out there, getting the sweat, and that's something that brings me joy.
For me also, movement brings me a lot of joy. I like to dance, and that's something that I feel if I could like twerk for 15 minutes daily, then I would like be good for the rest of my life.
The 15-minute twerk.
Just a 15-minute twerk, that's my self-care routine. But just movement, and also painting and doing things with my hands, like making like necklaces or something. They give me little bits of joy.
I love the dancing analogy too, because it's something that I feel like as grown-ups we sometimes forget, because when children hear music and they just dance, it's just so free. Yeah. You know, they don't care what they look like, they don't care anything, they just move, and you kind of see the joy in their movement, and that's that's why I really like the dance example.
Yeah, what I've done during this whole COVID situation, I've been on Teams meetings, and then when there's a break for like 15 minutes in the meetings, then I put on music and I quickly dance the 15 minutes so that I don't have to sit the whole day, and also like that also brings me joy. And actually yesterday I was there at the circus school, so I started going to circus school. And I've done twice already. Yesterday something happened to my hip, but I'm still gonna keep on going. But like we were juggling. Like, I don't know how to juggle, and then you don't have time to really think about anything, or doing cartwheels or whatever acrobatics that you do. But like finding, at least for me, like now after this whole spring, I was like, I really need to find a sport that I've never done, that's sort of demanding, but not too demanding, and also fun, just fun. A lot of laughter happened there yesterday. And I think I think we're supposed to move also. And I think when we talk about, like, the theme is well-being as well, And you can look at it from a physical standpoint as well as like a mental standpoint. And I think both support each other quite well. And I think like we should move at least a little bit to get our everything flowing in our bodies as well.
And I just wanted to add, because it's quite interesting listening to how you guys said movement, it just kind of evoked this thought that when you do something that you enjoy, that is innately in you, right? You are yourself, so there's no need to perform. Like, you are giving it your all, whether it's dancing, you're vulnerable, you're showcasing who you are, your nature. And that's one thing, like you said, kids, we often forget as adults. Kids, if they're gonna throw a tantrum, that's because they're reacting to something. If they're gonna dance, it's because somebody put on great music that they love. And I think as adults, we kinda forget that. And for me, that joy, it's more of a state of being as opposed to happiness, where it's kind of like in this Western culture, it's a performance. Like, oh, let me smile, then I'll look, I'm happy. But with joy, I think it's harder to perform, and it's harder to fake. Yeah.
I think that's the reason why we didn't want to talk about happiness. We wanted to talk about joy, because happiness and joy, like you said, you went back and you were like, okay, what is joy really? And the way I sort of look at it, I have joy like tattooed in Finnish on my arm. Like, that's how I look at it. And I need this constant reminder to remember joy, and sort of also, I'm half Igbo, the tribe from Nigeria, and in Igbo it means like the center of the village, where you have all the fights, but you also have all the parties, you have all the discussions, and that to me is sort of joy. That it's the most important sort of thing. And it's funny that we're talking about joy, and I have it actually like written on me. I didn't think this was gonna happen. I didn't think I was gonna be also moderating this panel, but here we are. But I think it's just a funny, like, that's how sort of I've conceptualized joy in my head. And I think like what you said about being in your body, it also has a lot to do with that. And when you said that you think it's pure, I think it's very similar, just being in your body without anything. And the same thing when I said before in the first talk about like getting a hug from a child you love, like that's pure joy, because you're there. You're like so in the moment. You're not thinking about anything else. You're in your body. You feel someone. You have a connection. All those things can be a part of that sort of joyful experience, I think. But it's funny that I actually have joy tattooed on my arm and it means something in both of my sort of languages also. And I thought that was funny. I just wanted to bring it to you guys as well. What about, well, you discussed it a little bit, and me too, about this sort of spring, summertime. I don't know if you've been locked in or locked out or what's been happening, but how have you been able to find joy in sort of different times than maybe normal spring would have had? You said you've been making some bread. A lot of bread.
I even had like on Instagram House Daughter Chronicles, like, because I live with my mom, and I was like chronicling what it means to, live with her, and, making bread. And a friend of mine was also living with her mom, and she was like, we're both house daughters, and we're joking, if they need a reality show, they should call us up. The real house daughters of Helsinki. So it's that thing of, just, I guess, seeing things for what they are, taking them for what they are, and just seeing how can I move forward with this? Because I think that's also another thing with happiness, like we kind of disregard reality. But like I said, with joy, you just take it as it is. And as a lot of Black people say, we move. We move,
I mean, spring was tough. It was, as I've been saying, my craft brings me a lot of joy, and it just stopped. It just stopped immediately. So I had to but somehow, because the situation was so serious, I didn't really have time to be kind of sad about it. Like, I was sad, but I understood this is the only way. And, you know, then, you know, kids aren't in daycare anymore. I take my children out, you know, and we're home, you know, all day. I have a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old. And I started thinking, you know, I couldn't play basketball. I'm like, man, this kind of sucks. But then I started thinking it also kind of from my child's perspective, that, hey, they get this 2 months of undivided attention from me right now because I don't have to work. I don't have to go anywhere. I'm here every day. I'm present right here. And as a parent, it can be difficult, you know. but when you go back and you think of like I tried to imagine in the future, and I tried to imagine like how are my children going to view this time, and I thought like they might actually think like because they were still young, you know, they're not going out with their friends. They might actually think like, wow, that was an amazing 2 months where I just got to be with my parents every day, and that was really fun. And I try to find the good in things. It's kind of my nature as a person as well. So I try to just view it from that perspective, and it kind of gave me, you know, kind of like hope, like, hey, this might be really cool, you know, for my children in a way.
Yeah, because I can imagine like not being able to work completely is also like, it's pretty rough for a person, especially you've been doing this for a really long time and it's always been a part of your life, but then you found the silver lining of the situation.
Yeah, it's kind of what I do, and it actually, you know, having to press pause, it gives you time to reflect, and you get a chance to reflect on things like what are important in your life, you know, and are you actually doing what you want to do, and like, am I doing what I want to do? Am I actually giving it 100%, or have I been neglecting it? Could I be giving more? And it's just like, how about my children? Have I been, you know, too busy with other things? So I try to make more time for them, and it just, you know, it gives you a chance to reflect, and you know, I kind of try to take it as a chance to improve myself as a person, and so I wouldn't need another pandemic for me to become a better person.
It's been hard for me to learn when to take a break because I work from home with writing and things like that. So now I just felt like in the beginning of the lockdown, I felt like, oh, I just can get more stuff done. And so I just keep going and keep going. But it kind of comes in waves where I realize that I really do have to take a break. And I'm in the process now of sort of cutting back some projects, and I really have to chill.
Yeah, I definitely think I understand your sort of the pause, and at least for me, it was also like I was working from home. I also thought, oh, but now I can get just so much more done that I'm here. But then all of a sudden, it was quite hard to work from a one-room apartment next to a building site. It was quite hard. But I think this sort of the pandemic has given us a chance to sort of reflect. And I've also done a lot of pondering on like, okay, what are the important things in my life? What are the things I want to actually give all of my energy to? And what are the things that maybe I don't want to give all of my energy to? And then in the end, I found out it was like friends, family, and like sort of my own development and growth. And I think those are also things that then bring me joy when I do them, because why else would I pick them as like my priorities? But there's definitely been a kind of shift in the way I think of, for example, rest. Because when you are at home or you're not working at all, it's also like a weird sort of limbo of what is enough, what isn't, and where to stop also. And I think rest is something I've been sort of struggling with in the past years, and now I've been trying to learn how to rest and how to give myself a break and how to sort of have that balance of doing a lot of things that I love to do, but then also resting. And I think it's great if you're trying to find that balance too, because it might be hard.
Process too, yeah, of learning that. I'm also in the process of learning how to take a break and when to stop and what is enough work and how can I measure that what I have done is enough and sort of accept that and then take a break.
I think that's a good point as well as you made about writing. I'm sure you enjoy writing, And then I'm sure, you know, when the pandemic comes, you're like, oh, like I can do more of it, you know, I can do more of it. But even though like I kind of like, in my situation, it was like kind of like, oh, I enjoy my family, now I can be with them all the time, it's great. But everybody knows, like, if you're in, you know, if you're combined, like if you're in a small space with the same group of people for a long, long time, it doesn't matter how much you love them, they're gonna annoy you eventually. Yeah. So I figure it's kind of like you can have too much of a good thing also as well, and it kind of, I think the rest is kind of where you can find that balance of where you can balance your life between different things, and kind of you understand that joy isn't this only one thing or one thing. Is, you know, it can be a lot of different things that allow you to be yourself.
Yeah, and I was actually telling Fiona that 2020 is the year I've been learning my own limitations. Because, like you said, too much of a bad thing, or too much of anything, too much of anything ends up being a bad thing. Or, like, for instance, if you like ketchup on your fries, too much ketchup on it is going to make you sick. Like, you're not going to end up eating them.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah. But yeah, like you honestly said, it had one thing about 2020 we can collectively take away. It's our own limitations, and I think we are now at this point, you know, we're so technologically advanced that we have forgotten that we are humans, and to be human is to be limited, you know, and like being in this limbo of sorts where you're not sure about some relatives that you're not seeing on a daily basis, or some friends, or being in this limbo of, you know, for instance, you're no longer working, so what does this mean for me? Am I, you know, like, what does this mean for me since I'm no longer productive? Or I now have the time to be productive, but I can't get myself to do anything. Like, help, like, what does this mean? So is it because now that I have the time, right, but I can't do anything, was the problem me after all? So, so these are all things I'm sure every person, and if you're, you know, you're creative, you're an athlete, you were doing something, right? And then this pandemic came out of nowhere. These are all questions that are going through people's minds, and now we kind of have to go back and analyze, okay, maybe we are human after all, you know?
Yeah, I definitely, when the sort of lockdown phase started, I have never been so happy in my whole life as I was when I could just chill at home. I was putting all my plants, changing the earth for them. I was cleaning, I was making bread, I was making pulla. I was, you know, I was like a little housewife for like a month. And I was so happy because I didn't have to go anywhere. I didn't have any social obligations anymore. But then it sort of, I started getting I needed my social fix after a while. But in the start, I was like, oh, I could just be by myself and me. And I think that's what really, like, sort of, there was space for me just to be me in my own little space, even though, like, after a while, it starts to be a bit claustrophobic. But the first few weeks, wow, I was a whole nother person. I was like productive, but I didn't want to be productive. I was just chilling, and it was really amazing. But I don't think it happens like that for everyone, definitely. And it's a bit different to be in that state as a single, like living by yourself, or then having like a whole family of kids who are at the age of, they ask questions all the time and they just want to chill with you all the time, and then they're like, yay, now you're here. And it's super fun in the start, but then after a while you're like, okay, these kids need to go back to daycare at some point, like they really need to go. I can imagine a lot of parents were really happy when the daycares were opened again because they love their kids, but 24/7 is a lot to be with anyone. Like, that's why we have also that work-family-life balance, I think.
I mean, a lot of parents were happy, but you also saw from the children that the children also needed it. Like, it was also like, they had fun, but it was time. You know?
And they couldn't chill with their friends and play with their friends. Like, they get to play every day and have these learning experiences that you can't maybe as a parent provide because you're not a teacher. But I think definitely the kids were, like, at least all the kids I know, they were super happy to go back to school and back to daycare. My brother told my mom, like, I'm done with living this office life with you, and just went back to school. But I think it's definitely been challenging. Everyone's had to adjust a lot. And at the same time, I think it's good that we sort of find out like, oh, I'm able to adjust to different situations and get some power from that. But also like, for me, this sort of having BLM then in the summer and George Floyd was quite like exhausting, and that there it was quite hard for me to find those pockets of joy that I usually have, but still like I was able to find some with maybe more people and connecting with people, and sort of I think what Miksu said in the start about sort of having conflicted feelings about this whole situation, it doesn't help with feeling joyous, because you're just like, I don't know if I'm supposed to like be like, yay, people are finally talking about this, or am I supposed to be like, this is too much. But I think especially this summer, joy and sort of black joy for me has been more relevant than ever. In a sense, I don't know if you have any thoughts about this sort of connection to Black Lives Matter being globally more recognized and starting to be a movement that people talk about also other places than in the States.
I mean, yeah, it hit pretty hard. It hit pretty hard, you know, with the pandemic and everything, and then, you know. I feel like the pandemic was kind of the gasoline, and then, you know, George Floyd was the match, and everything just went up in flames, and it really sparked people's emotions and feelings. And I found myself too, you know, I found myself having days where I would just like, all I could think about was my blackness, and kind of also the pain that comes with it, and it was really hard to shake that off. But it was also, at the same time, I was happy to see the solidarity that a lot of people showed for the movement, you know, people showing up, and, you know, and even here in Finland, that, you know, how many people showed, you know, showed that they're standing with you and they're with you on these issues and matters, and that kind of gave me hope. I think one of the biggest things was when I went to Senaatin tori for the BLM, and I was waiting outside, and I saw how many young people were there, and it kind of hit me different. It's like this new generation, they're different. They're different than us. They want some change. They want, and they're actually gonna do something about that. And that really, you know, it really gave me like this happy feeling inside.
I also felt similar, like something is different when I attended the BLM march in Turku, and there was a lot of young people there too. And I feel like something has shifted and something is like happening in this, like the younger generation, and something, I definitely felt much more hopeful there, and also like in general, somehow I feel like it's tough, but it's getting better. Super slowly, but somehow.
For me, I think that the reason why everything in regards to BLM took off worldwide is because for the first time in a very, very long time, people were forced to actually be inside, and majority of them were not working or at school. So there was really no distractions, and they couldn't run away from their feelings. And there is nothing scarier than I'll speak for myself, because I overwork myself a lot, and it's usually as a response to kind of not deal with my emotions. And there's nothing scarier than not having that job as your clutch to not deal with your emotions. So for me, because I also, you know, my job, we had to stop working because I work in a restaurant, and I was, you know, at home baking bread. Sometimes I was happy, but sometimes I was like, this dough is not rising because I'm thinking about, you know, George Floyd, and, you know, it's messing up, you know. And I can only imagine what a lot of other people were going through as well. When you don't really have that clutch to really run away from your feelings, and you kind of have to deal with the things as they are. And not just, for non-black people, but black people as well, and especially for black people. Like for me specifically as Kenyan and as Kikuyu, in our culture, and women specifically, we have this thing of hard work. The more hardworking a woman was in the olden times, the more beautiful she was. And I grew up in a household where my mom was always like, you always have to find something to do. So what that registered in my mind is, if you're not doing anything, if you're not being productive, then you are of no use. So I always find myself like, I have to do something. And sometimes I'm like, one thing I learned is like, why do I have to do something? Why can I just not do nothing? Like, I can do nothing, and to just process everything that's going on. So I think that's, for me, what's stuck, is that people aren't in this state of really running away from their emotions and using all these other, schoolwork or actual work, the 9 to 5, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, and I think joy has a lot to do with this topic in the end, because yeah, you have a lot of negative emotions. At least I felt, like I said before, like this collective grief inside me where I'm like, why am I so sad? Like nothing's happened to me or to my family, but I feel like someone else's sadness. But then how do you go from that to joy? That's been sort of the question for me. And the way I've sort of dealt with it is through other people and seeing them sort of joyful, or going to a party or a picnic with some of my friends, or doing something like this, and just laughing a lot and making a lot of weird jokes. I think like as mechanisms are good to inspire joy out of sort of like a group thing. But definitely, I think this has been hard, but then, like you said, also, it's sort of also been weirdly hopeful, and sort of, I remember also going to the BLM march in Helsinki and seeing all these people and being so like conflicted of, oh my God, all these kids are here. Like the young generation, they really pulled up, and I'm so hopeful and sort of emotional even about it. But then at the same time, it's all like so sad at the same time. So it's definitely been hard for me, at least, to allow myself even to feel joy when there's so much sort of sadness around it as well. But I think it's quite challenging to in these kinds of times. What about like, because we are at Good Hair Day also, so I want to ask you also, does your hair bring you any joy, ever? Or is it just the sort of wash day again? I gotta cut my hair again. Or is there any joy that you get from your hair?
Well, my wash day is today, so I'm very excited. I've been wearing this protective style for almost 3 months now, so it's kind of like I shaved my head last year in October, and that was the first time where I was like completely bald, and it was a lot of fun to like get to know my scalp and to get to know my hair and to sort of like change my perception of my hair, because I wrote a piece about my hair, and in the piece I wrote a lot about how when I was younger and I would style my hair, I never used the term style, I used the term to manage or to fix, because my hair was a problem. It was something that I had to sort of wrestle with to get to somehow look like how I wanted to. So now I'm trying to relearn how to style my hair and how to take care of it, and also, especially when taking down braids, it's kind of like you're unwrapping a present, sort of, to see like how much my natural hair has grown and sort of watching the process. So it does bring me joy now, my hair, it does, but it took a lot to get here.
That's a long sort of work with yourself to get to that point for most of us.
For me, yeah, I mean, especially as a kid, they used to bring me, a lot of joy. I remember I used to try all kind of different haircuts. I wanted to be Will Smith from Fresh Prince. I had that thing going on for a while. Then, Dennis Rodman was one of my favorite players, so I was dyeing my hair for a little bit. I did that. Then Allen Iverson came along, so of course I had to go with the braids, Then, I wanted to make the braids look better, so I had a perm, so I could get like really the straight braids and everything. I was doing all kind of stuff. Then I think I kind of hit a spot where I was like, I'm done with my hair, and I shaved my head for probably over 10 years. I just shaved it short every time. I was like, no, it's just so much easier like this. It was like freedom. And then, I think it started in my team a couple of years ago. Guys were making, fun of another guy, because he can, grow hair, and stuff like that. And then they started talking about me, and I said, whoa, I said, I can grow hair, I just don't want to. And, they started daring me, and, bet you won't do it for this. I said, okay, I'll do it, And so I kind of grew my hair, and then when I grew it out for the first time in a long time, I kind of started enjoying it again. I'm like, yo, this is fun. Like, I really like it. I like having a little afro and everything, and it's fun, and it does give me joy.
For me, for the longest time, because I've had such a complicated relationship and complicated feelings in regards to my hair, growing up in Finland, and as the only black girl in my class, and it was an international school for that matter. And because, Afro-textured hair is very versatile. We can do so many things. So these times, like every month or every other month, I would come in with a new hairstyle. And kids would go crazy. Like, they would go wild. They would be like, oh, she's here. She's like, they would wait for me. They'd be like, she's here, new hairstyle. Let's see. And that was like, I was like, oh, this is a thing? I was like, wait, this is a thing? Like, because to me, I was so used to it. Because in Kenya, we do our hair every week. But here, I was like, oh, they're getting so excited, And it would bring me some sort of satisfaction, I was like, oh, like you'd think I'm Naomi Campbell or somebody like that, Yeah, like really, it was a thing. Like they would wait for me and they'd be like, turn around, let's see. And they're like, I like the other one better. So I did that for a very, very long time until 9th grade. And I didn't have that awareness that, this is Afro-textured hair, the reason why I'm doing this. It's until I got to high school, I was like, I have become a sort of slave. Like I've become sort of limited to this. Because I was like, why am I really doing this? Is because they're reacting to it, or is it because I want to? And I'm a very self-aware person that I usually investigate every single decision that I make. So then I was like, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to take out the extensions, the braids, the wigs, the weaves, whatever, and try this whole natural hair thing. I'm going to try to take care of my own hair. And that was in 2016. And it opened this whole new world for me, like YouTube videos. I was seeing all these babies with their hair. And then I was like, wow, okay, so my hair was never a problem. It's the way I thought of it. And that was where the poem To the Girls with Hair Like That of a Wild Forest was born. Because ultimately, it was like a love letter to my younger self, who had all those complicated feelings. And then when I started growing out my hair, because it grows quite fast, I ended up limiting myself once more. So I went from being the whole, girl who changes her hairstyles all the time, to now people would be like, oh, your hair is so thick, it's so luscious, like, what do you do? What can you recommend a hair product? And again, I went and I was like, once again, it's the same thing, but at the very opposite side of the spectrum. So late last year to early this year, when I went back home, I was like, I'm gonna try something different with my hair. Because from 2016 until that time, I had not allowed myself to do much with my hair because I just wanted to be that Afro-textured hair Aqualine. And I went ahead and straightened my hair. What happened was, ooh, you know where this is going. What happened was, I straightened my hair. It looked great, you know, it was long, tailbone, whatever. But then every time I would brush it, huge chunks of hair would come out. That was when I knew, I was like, I have to let this hair go. So when I came into Finland, I was kind of still in denial about it. I was like, let's salvage this hair, let's do something. And then I looked at some pictures and I was like, no, it's got to go. So I cut it all off. And now it's like this whole new me. So my hair does bring me a lot of joy because it's allowed me to really discover myself in ways that I have never been able with such depth. And it's opened such multitudes for me because I feel like a very different person with different hair. And now that I have it short, I feel so connected to my roots and my ancestry because traditionally Kikuyu women never grew their hair. Like, if you were a young girl, an unmarried girl, maybe a little like this, but then when you'd get married, they would shave it off and then apply castor oil and you would be bald and shiny. And that was considered beautiful. So for me, yes, my hair in a lot of ways does bring me joy.
I love your school experience because I have the exact same experience of going like every second week. I would go on a Monday and the kids on Tuesday morning, they'd be like, what's gonna come, what is it gonna be, what color is it gonna be? And I would just be like, this is normal, like, what is this spectacle? And then that's why I stopped also doing it because it was such a spectacle. And I was like, oh, this is my hair, this is for me. Like, why is everyone always getting like so excited about what color extensions I'm gonna have or whatever? And I also loved your like sort of being someone's fan and being able to replicate. No, but like that's something that is really important. And I think for a lot of guys especially, it is that when you see like your favorite basketball player has the cornrows, then you're like, let me get some cornrows, let me grow my hair.
That's exactly how it was.
But also that you know, hair is such a weird thing for us, I think, that you can see someone and be like, okay, that's who I want to be. So let me try to do my hair like they do. Like, who else can do that except for us, really? Like, not a lot of white people can do that. At least it's not as easy as it is for us to do that. And I think that also sort of shows the power of hair. And I think for me as well, like, even today, this is not how my hair was supposed to be like. Like, really, I did not plan this way. I was supposed to have a ponytail, but that did not work. So we had to go improvise. And then I look at it, I'm like, okay, but this looks pretty good. Yeah, we pulling through, okay. So I think there is lots of, even this morning, I was like so disappointed. I was a bit negative about it. I was like, oh, man, it's good hair day. I should have my hair somehow. And then I was like, okay, let me fix it. Let me try a couple of different things. And ta-da, it worked out really well, which then I was really happy about. I think we are out of time, sadly. I would love to continue this conversation for like hours with you guys. But if there is anything you would still like to say about joy, go ahead. If not, we can close this panel discussion. I am joyful about you being here, definitely. And I feel like I learned a lot. Let's see. Oh. Okay, there are a couple questions. We can continue. We still have a couple minutes. Don't worry. I'm good with time. I'm checking. There's a couple questions from the audience on the live stream. One of them is, what are the joys that your craft holds? You all have a craft. If you can talk about that.
Well, in sports, it's a lot of, one part I didn't talk about is the competitive part, is competing against somebody. And it's kind of, there's a joy of putting in the work of, hey, I'm gonna work on this thing, because what people see are the games, but that's actually a small percentage of the work is done usually outside of that. It's done in the gym, you're sweating hours in the gym, you're lifting weights, you're doing work. And one of the joys of the craft is when you're putting in that work and you're imagining like how you're going to do it in the game, and then you actually get in a competitive setting and you win those one-on-one situations because of the work you did, and you can, this other person is trying to stop you, but they can't, whatever it is, and that is kind of the joy it brings of you see the fruit of your labor at work, and that's what it is in my craft.
For me, as a writer, I realized the joy that one thing that I love is when somebody is able to relate or somehow connect to my work. Because I remember when To the Girls with Hair Like That of a Wild Forest was, out, and one mom was like, I'm gonna read this to my daughter. And that made me cry. I was like, I'm not ready for this. And then another person was like, we should have this read out to somewhere in camp for Black babies. And I was like, I'm not ready for this. So that is a joy that somebody takes away something. And it's sort of like, as an artist, I see myself, it's like a gift, and then somebody receives it. Somebody's receptive to it. So that is a joy.
Yeah, I recommend to read the poem because at least for me, it was a thing where I felt like seen in someone's writing, and I think that's pretty amazing. So you should check it out. It's definitely going to be on your Instagram at least.
The gift thing that you just said, that's definitely for me too what brings me joy, is when someone receives what I have put down, what I have written or what I have filmed, and they see either themselves or someone they know, or some kind of, it triggers like a memory or something like that. I really like when also people, when they interact with my craft and they come talk to me and they tell me how it made them feel, or I like the discussion. Of course, the making is fun and then it comes out, but then the aftermath of like talking about it and rewatching it, and that is also what gives me like a lot of joy, and the interaction with people.
Yeah, you're still making it for someone to consume.
I just wanted to ask, because both of you are writers, is it kind of like, so you're writing, you're creating this something, and you have this image of how it's going to be received, and is there kind of like this nervous energy before it goes out, and then like there has to, the joy is probably when like people perceive it the way you want it to, and it's kind of like, is it kind of like like yes, people get it, and it's just.
Yeah, I definitely, it takes a lot of time for things to hit me. So I wrote like 5 pages about my hair, and then I posted it. I was thinking like, okay, I'm gonna post like half of 1 page on my Instagram, and I like made the slide and I did the thing, and then as I'm about to hit post, I'm like, what have I done? This is gonna go out, and it's, in that moment is when I like realize, oh, like I did something and it's gonna be public. So it definitely, I do feel a bit nervous, but then I just remember like the bigger picture and why I'm doing it, and then it gets better.
For me, just to keep it short, it's one of my fears is being misunderstood, but I have a greater fear of being naked or vulnerable. So when people read something of mine, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm bearing my soul. And I recently had an open mic, and something like that happened. And I was like, these people don't realize how like naked I feel right now. So I'm a type of person, I'm afraid, but I will do it anyway. Yeah. So even if there's the fear, I'll still do it.
That's really cool, guys. There's a couple questions that I'm going to combine because we don't have a lot of time. One of them is, can there be joy in sorrow also? Which we discussed maybe a little bit already. And then also about the sort of toxic positivity, or that sort of idea of if joy or the depiction of joy can be also toxic, like this African people are always smiling and happy because that's the pictures you see on ad campaigns. What do you think about this? So can there be joy in sorrow, and what about the sort of toxicity of it?
I mean, the first thing that came to mind is the joy of sorrow is kind of watching your children grow, because they're not your babies anymore, and you kind of, you know, and when they take these steps, and you kind of, and you're so happy for them because they're growing, but at the same time, you kind of like, you're losing something at the same time, and that kind of, that's the first thing that I thought of, like, kind of the joy and the sorrow. Like you're kind of watching them go, but it's kind of something you need to do.
For me, I do think, joy and sorrow can coexist together. I actually don't think that the opposite of joy is sorrow. For me, it's more to do with grief. That's the way I look at it. But maybe because I'm a writer and I'm looking at it in a different way. In terms of the toxic positivity, for me, like I said, it's for the way I see it, it's a disregard of reality and a disregard of nuance. Because as humans, we feel all sorts of emotions. And if you're overly focused on just being positive, then you're doing yourself a disservice. Because there are always going to be bad days, there are always going to be difficult days, right? And disregarding that, again, you're limiting yourself, because to be human is to be broad. It's a vastness, it's abundance,
I think what you just said is very important, because I've seen like people around me, they see me as a very positive person, outgoing person, always happy. And sometimes I just don't have the energy for that. So I might not even be sad, I might just be, quiet, in my thoughts. And then people might be like, is something wrong? What's wrong with you? I'm like, no, leave me alone. Like,
You're a human,
Like, I just don't have the energy to amuse you right now.
Yeah, but that also happens quite a lot, I feel like. That if you're especially seen as quite a joyous, happy person, positive, then when you're not smiling and like being like, yay, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, then all of a sudden people are like, what's wrong? And you're like, I didn't sleep well last night, or like, I just don't have the energy to be super, super, super excited about everything. And I think to do with that sorrow side is also like, I've been to funerals where it's been a celebration of someone's life instead of just grieving. It's been sad, but also you can find those like being joyful of having to know someone, for example. So I think they can coexist, and they should as well.
I agree that the joy and sorrow, I agree that they coexist, and I feel like to make sorrow joy, you need hope and you need gratitude. And when you combine those, there's a process that happens, and then it becomes joy. But you definitely need both. You need both sides to have a full balance and a full spectrum of human emotion. And what was the other one? Toxic.
Positivity.
Yeah, that definitely, that also when the positivity becomes just a distraction and it's a performance, like how you said with self-care being hijacked by capitalism, and that's when it can definitely become very toxic.
I agree. Now we're out of time, but this was a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have a little bit of a gift bag for you for coming, and I really love that you were able to come and have this conversation. This was amazing.
Thank
guys.
you for
you.
having
Thank
me.
Thank you very much.
This was great. Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe if we could ask our joyous panelists to take a group photo outside, one of our photographers will meet you at the door, and then you are welcome to join the hair talk after that. Thank you. And just to let you know, we're going to shift the stage a little bit for the hair talk, but next will be Jessica Eboreima from AFRO AKATEMIA giving a talk on wellness and well-being when it comes to consideration with your hair. So bear with us where we change the stage. Thank you. They will put it on
Oh,
from
okay.
there. Yeah. Okay, for those who maybe stood up and took a walk, we're about to start the third session of this morning session. My dear friend Jessica, hairstylist and creative all around, will be giving a talk on behalf of AFRO AKATEMIA. But I will let you do your introductions of AFRO AKATEMIA yourself, and we will proceed with the hair talk.
All right. Let me just breathe a little bit. Husa. Okay. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. Good. So yes, as Saida mentioned, my name is Jessica Eberemi. I feel like I need to, well, I'm Finnish and Nigerian, born in Finland, raised in the US. And I'm a hairstylist and also one of the founding members of AFRO AKATEMIA. AFRO AKATEMIA is a resource in Finland. Basically, we provide information, products, tools, consultations, and education in the form of workshops to families and professionals, anyone who's interested in taking care of styling or all things considered for texture hair. This is our second year working with Good Hair Day, so it's a pleasure that they've invited us back, and I look forward to doing this collaborative work with you guys in the future. And I hope that today I can give you some information that you find useful, and also just some food for thought on well-being and how our hair very much relates to that. TED Talk situation, I like it. Let's see. Oh, I have to point, okay. So yes, speaking about well-being and our hair, understanding, accepting, and loving our hair. These are concepts that are really at the core of understanding how our hair ties into our well-being. Understanding, meaning we work on knowing our hair, how our hair feels when it's healthy, how our hair feels when it's damaged. Do you know when your hair is moisturized? Do you know when your hair is dry? And what does it need to thrive? These are all things that when you don't have a good understanding of them, you might feel like something is wrong with your hair. With this, there's the accepting of our hair. So accepting our hair in its natural state as a starting point. It doesn't mean you can't change it, and actually that's one of the best things about our hair. We can do so many things with it. But it's really important that before we start making any major changes to the hair, we understand what our hair is and what condition it's in and what it can and cannot do. And most importantly, loving our hair. And loving it unconditionally, meaning that when you have a bad hair moment, you don't feel like there's something wrong with your hair. You recognize that, okay, I know what my hair is. I realize what it looks like, what it feels like when I'm taking care of it. And this moment right now is not going to ruin my day. It's hair. At the end of the day, no matter how much importance we're putting on it, and even myself as a hairstylist, there's days where I'm like, it's just hair. So, talking about relationships. We all have different relationships with our hair. Even not caring about your hair is a relationship that you have with it. It's okay if you don't spend a lot of time on your hair or put a lot of effort into it, but you have to ask yourself that, is it okay? Are you just wanting to keep it simple, minimal effort? Maybe you're a very active person, you have other priorities, the hair doesn't really interest you, you don't feel like it defines you, or have you given up on it because you feel like it's hopeless and it's not worth your time? And what good example of this is there are a lot of women and men, anyone, who prefer to keep their hair short. It's a choice. It's a choice whether it's easier for them, it makes more sense with their lifestyle, or it's the look that they want and they love. But there's a difference between someone who simply just doesn't want to be involved with their hair care. They have completely given up on it, it's breaking off, and it's just kind of like, whatever, it's just there, and I don't really care. So if you really go to the depths of it and where these feelings and ideas come from, they really do tie into our well-being. Neglecting your hair is, just like with any other symptoms of depression and things like that, we start noticing it in our appearances. So just because your appearance doesn't suit what someone else thinks is appropriate is not an issue. But when your appearance is a sign of you no longer caring, then we need to ask some more questions. One of the things that's really important and very unique living in Finland is considering how our hair is in Finland, how our hair is treated and accepted in Finland, and how it affects us. One of these that's very evident is the lack of representation, whether it's in visually ads, magazines, company materials, brochures, websites. I liked when there's a group of people in some kind of an ad, I always kind of scan and see, is there someone there who I feel might represent me or someone I know, a person of color? And it's very concerning to me when that doesn't happen, and it's often, whether it's, I've seen like ads for city kind of campaigns or, a campaign for city services, and they'll say, oh, this is for everyone can join, and I'm like, I don't see anyone there that looks like me, so is it really for everyone? So just the inclusivity and representation. And also showcasing a spectrum of different kinds of curly, kinky, and textured hair. Oftentimes it's easy maybe to have like a more, and colorism is very real, but having someone who is maybe more approachable or looks more tidy in whoever, the visual team's eyes. But there needs to be a spectrum of the diversity showed as well. It can't just be a token person who represents all textures and people of color. And lastly, just from my own professional perspective, I always look at the hair. If there is a person of color and I look at the hair, my first question is why? Like, they couldn't get anyone? Like all the other models, all the other pictures, they're, finely manicured, makeup, hair, and then there's this person, and I know just from working there that somebody is probably like, let's just do something. Okay, that's fine. And you have to wonder, how does the model feel in that moment? How do they feel in terms of watching their colleagues getting full hair and makeup done, and they're just kind of there left to their own, own knowledge. They're not getting pampered, they're not getting treated, or they're just getting completely dismissed, or in some cases they're being told, just do your own hair and show up, for different reasons. But at the end of the day, this is where the representation is very important. And then that kind of leads to us feeling like we're being overlooked as consumers. There's no resources for us here. There's no real selection in the supermarkets or cosmetic stores, no tools. And so you walk into these places and you're like, well, I guess I can try this because it says it's super moisturizing for damaged, unruly, curly hair. And like, that's me, yep. And that's not how it should feel. And then of course we have our options. We have the variety of stores in AKATEMIA. But why do we need to buy our hair products in the same places we buy our foods and spices, That's just, I just feel like I would like to walk into Kicks or Stockman and see a section dedicated to my hair and skin as well. Isn't that inclusivity? Isn't that what we need? And just the feeling of that, feeling like, okay, I have to, even for myself, I have to plot, okay, which day can I go and buy my products? Luckily, we have AKATEMIA, but we have to get our products from somewhere too, so I understand the struggle. And then there's the obvious issue of lack of professional know-how. Just by kind of raise of hands, or anyone want to shout out, how many salons do you pass just when you're walking on a regular day. 3, 4, 5. I've counted at least 4 salons on one block before. Now, out of those salons, how many would you feel comfortable just walking into and getting an appointment for a haircut? Honestly. Yeah, it's a risk. It's a little bit scary. And sometimes, you know, when you can either go home and cut them, or if you just happen to know someone who knows someone and refers you to the couple places that know how to cut hair in a way where you feel comfortable with it, then you have that option. Or you just kind of have to risk it all and be like, I need a trim, so I'm just gonna go here. And I think anyone who's had that first-time experience, you can relate to the whole experience of walking in, the look on the professional's face when they see your hair. You asking, can I get a trim? And there's the moment of hesitation. And that alone to me is a red flag. Nope, you can't touch my hair. And then when you're sitting, you know, if you decide to get past that point, you're sitting in the chair, and you can also feel that the professional is nervous, even if, you know, they might be really good at their job in terms of cutting curly or textured hair, but they're nervous as well. You can feel it in their touch. You can feel the way they're doing it. So the whole experience is uncomfortable. You have anxiety from it. And in the event that something goes terribly wrong, you are pretty much traumatized from that. So the whole lack of having a professional whose know-how stops with your hair is kind of questionable to me. And then this also leads to a feeling of us feeling like our hair is a burden. Aside from the professionals blaming their lack of know-how on our difficult hair, we also need to address the issue of close friends and family members who negatively comment on our hair. So there's just, you know, we talk about microaggressions, sly comments that are made, or if you've ever changed your hair, maybe you wear it curly and natural sometimes, and then every now and then you get it straightened. There's always somebody, whether it's an auntie, a friend, dad, anyone, someone like, you know what? I actually like your hair better, you know, and it's just like, I didn't ask, and I don't really care. But those negative comments really kind of sit, and they sit with you. And we understand that there's a lack of support, but it's not okay to blame the individual for the personal traits that you can't relate to, and then make them feel like it's an issue for them. This happens a lot with mixed families. You know, there might be an issue with a disconnect between the caretaker and the child's hair. And I understand the stress of that as well. It's something completely new to the parent. But if you, as a parent or a guardian or the adult in the situation, are kind of unboxing or unraveling these frustrations to the child or whose hair you're doing, the child is taking all of that in. And eventually they'll start to believe, oh, my hair is really hard, it's an issue, this isn't normal, you know, we don't feel good about our hair when that happens. And I've seen this a lot in the professional setting, when a client sits in my chair and they will say, I'm sorry, my hair is a little fill in the blank. And I'm like, why are you apologizing for your hair? And it's almost like they've been conditioned to feel that their hair is an issue, it's a burden, it's problematic, and it's causing troubles for someone else. So there's a lot of unpacking that needs to happen. And it starts with ourselves, and I think some of this might be a little bit heavy, but it's important to acknowledge that these are traumas that we have experienced in one way or another. And maybe we don't even realize that we've internalized them so much that we believe them as well. And then the interesting thing is the curiosity that crosses boundaries and personal space. To me, this is fascinating because it challenges the stereotypical Finnish social manners. People want to touch our hair, which any other time, you know, you've seen the memes with people being meters spread apart at bus stops and just avoiding you at all costs. But when it comes to our hair, it's like it all goes away. You just see the hands coming towards you and you're like, no, no, no. So it's funny until it's not funny. And it can make you feel vulnerable. Like we don't have a say in other people having access to our personal space. And along with those boundaries are inappropriate questions, assumptions, things like, you probably can't use a regular comb, can you? I heard you don't really wash your hair that much. Is that your real hair? Why don't you just, have you tried? And it's like, these are personal questions. And it's fine if friends and family or some people, and you understand that they're also coming from a place of curiosity, and sometimes they mean well, but there have to be personal boundaries. There's certain things that just kind of in our hair culture don't need to be addressed, and certainly not with strangers. Another thing that's specific to Finnish language is that we don't have the language. We lack the vocabulary to discuss our hair. We don't have the words to describe all of the possibilities on how our hair can be styled. I've run into this a lot, again, from work experiences, where someone will show up and be like, oh, I kind of want this. And then I just start pulling up pictures online. Or they might have a picture. They'll show me a picture, a reference photo that they like to style. And I realize that they're searching with Finnish words, and the images are also oftentimes not even people of color. And I'm like, this is such a small bubble that we're operating in because the language is limiting us. And so I, in that moment, take that opportunity to educate someone, but how do you teach someone a whole new set of words to discuss hair when they've never even heard them? Luckily, we do have social media, so that's changing. We're kind of being exposed to different things, but I think it's really important to acknowledge that we need to really build this. We need to encourage it. We need to be educating each other and ourselves on how to discuss our hair and how to describe our hair in a non-negative way. And with the description of the hair, even comparing our hair to really seemingly innocent things can be very humiliating, and it can affect the way that we feel about our hair. Comparisons to things like wool, petting a dog, a bird's nest, a wool sweater, a bush, these things to someone else, and they might just like, oh, this is the best way to describe it, but no, I'm not a sheep. I don't want to be compared to your dog that you had at your grandma's house. Like, this is my hair. A personal experience I had with this was in school. I was mentally prepared for the day we would all wash each other's hair, but when it was my turn to get my hair washed, I knew that it would be fascinating, and I was like, well, this is fine. Like, I'm okay with this. I'm okay. They're curious. I can see it. This is a moment. They can all dig in, ask the questions, and then I'm closing the gates. But at the point where we were styling my hair, the teacher called over, like, come on, everyone come over and come touch this hair. And I was like, oh, geez. And it was just like 4 or 5 different products, and then the comments, oh, it feels like a dog. Oh my God, it's so soft. And I'm just like, what did you think? What were you expecting? And who wants to be compared to a dog? Where is that a compliment? So, and I knew that they meant well, but we really need to think about these things when we're talking about our hair. Or if you hear someone else talking about a friend's hair, a friend's child's hair, their own child's hair, because we are constantly internalizing these comments and remarks. And it does affect our well-being. It does affect our mental health. We can laugh them off, it's fine, but eventually all of this stuff layers up, it piles up. So it's very important to kind of check people, correct them, or maybe just kind of throw it back at them. Well, I don't compare you to a fish. I don't compare you to a glass. I don't even know what would be the equivalent of that. But I think we have to be kind of conscious of these things, and in those moments, take an opportunity to correct someone. And I think something that I constantly have to remind myself as well is that hair care is not just about looks. It very much involves self-care and hygiene as well. And we need to think about what it really means to take care of our hair. So one of the things that is extremely important is having realistic expectations and not comparing our hair to someone else. It's important to understand our hair's limitations with minimal manipulation. And what I mean by this is, like, for example, again, if a client shows up and they have a picture of, they're wearing their natural hair, they want to go natural, they've started this journey and they're really doing all the YouTube videos, products and things, and then they show a picture like, I want this curl. And in that moment, I have to say, that's a beautiful picture. Your hair is also beautiful, but that is not your hair. And it shouldn't make you feel like something is wrong with your hair if you can't achieve that, just with the efforts that the YouTuber is putting into their hair to get that look. Everyone's hair obviously is different, but it's important to know that taking the step to have a healthy hair journey or wanting to be natural does not mean that you're guaranteed to have hair like this, nor should that be the standard or the goal. So it's finding your own comfort zone and acceptance within your own hair texture. And the comparison, just like with social media, just like everything else when you're scrolling, and it takes a toll on you when you start feeling like your hair is inadequate. It's not up to beauty standards. It's not clean. It doesn't look kept. It doesn't look shiny. Whose standards are you comparing your hair to? And it's interesting because even within a family, when you have the same parents, oftentimes siblings will have completely different hair texture. So it's just very important to acknowledge that there are differences and to have these expectations that allow you to live in this comfort zone with your own hair. And in my opinion, the beauty of Afro-textured hair is that there are so many possibilities in terms of what you can do with it. But it really comes down to knowledge, know-how, the tools and products that you're using. And I understand that it's still at very early stages here in Finland. But I think that you should have comfort in knowing that you can really do just about anything with your hair. The other really, really important thing in terms of just self-care is hygiene and cleanliness. And this means washing our hair consistently and with a suitable shampoo, focusing, of course, on the scalp care. But I think there are a lot of misconceptions on how we should be washing our hair, how often we should be washing our hair, and with what products. With shampooing and any kind of cleanliness, it is important. It is a part of your hygiene. Just like you wash your face and your body, you should be washing your hair just the same. And in terms of proper washing and techniques, you should be focusing on the scalp. A lot of times the products that we use are heavier. They may contain certain kind of fillers that really don't work, or if they're styling products even, and they can create other issues. So focusing on your scalp and then kind of running it through, making sure that you're properly detangling your hair. I know there's a lot of debates about finger detangling, using a comb or using a brush. I always recommend that you do what's best for you in that moment, but ultimately the point of detangling is to get all of the knots out and kinks out. So if you have tighter textured coily hair or drier hair, sometimes the finger coiling alone is not enough. What I see a lot in the salon is that someone might have finger detangled, but then when I go through as a professional and I'm trying to do a technical kind of thing, cutting or something, I can't get the comb through because there's tiny, tiny knots in between. And that's what's causing breakage. That can cause product buildup and all kinds of other issues. So I understand that sometimes combing and brushing may not be the most pleasant experience for yourself or for your child, but it's necessary. It becomes a hygiene issue. It can't be not done because it's painful or they don't want to. Because in the long run, you wouldn't let yourself or your loved one skip showers all of a sudden because they don't want to. So the detangling and the washing is an essential part of the hygiene and cleanliness. And then nurturing your hair with proper products. I cannot emphasize this enough, but oil is not the solution. I always ask people, when you're thirsty, Do you want a glass of oil or do you want a glass of water? And I understand where this comes from. I'm not saying oil is not necessary. Oils are not necessary for our hair, but that is not the end-all solution to everything. And in fact, using incorrect oils and using them incorrectly and too often can cause other kinds of problems. A lot of times when people see that the hair is dull or the scalp is dry or itchy or flaky, the first thing is, okay, let's pour oil on it. Like, no, no. And I understand also where that comes from, so I'm not saying this to make anyone feel bad if this is what they're practicing at home, but I'm here to provide some insight in terms of why this can create more problems for you. So if you have flaking and you're dry and you're putting more oil on it, chances are you might even start seeing an increase in that flaking. It turns into a different kind of flaking, larger, nastier, oilier flakes that can cause more problems. You're essentially blocking, your scalp can no longer breathe, and these products start to pile up, depending on what you're using and how you're using them. A lot of the products might have unnecessary fillers, like petroleum jelly, and then, like I said, the product buildup can cause issues, and in severe cases, if it's really bad product buildup, you can start to see hair loss. So we really need to kind of be conscious of what we're putting in, and it's hard to just say, oh, these are the things, and this is the order you need to put them in, because everyone's hair is different and has different needs. So if you are interested in doing maybe more consultations or getting more information on what would be suitable, you can reach out to some of the stylists. I don't think I have them recommended here just yet, but some of you might know, like Meron at Hios Trendy. Some of you I've seen before. Priscilla also at, she'll be opening up her own salon here shortly. And then Colors International also, I believe. They have quite a few specialists or professionals who are very well familiar with our hair. I'm sure I'm missing a lot. So at the end, when I have my information, if you have any other stylists that you know or would like to recommend, please send them to us, because we want to be able to recommend other stylists to people when they reach out to us, and not just in the Helsinki area, as many places as you know. And then I think there's an important, in terms of the products, knowing the difference between hair care products and styling products. A lot of the products that are coming here right now are coming from the US. Some of those products in the US there's the FDA regulating things, but not to the extent that they should be, and certainly not the way that things are regulated here. So understanding what you're applying on your body and your skin, and knowing the difference between what these products can actually do, if they're good, if they're meant to improve your hair's condition, or if they're simply just there to make it look like your hair is in a better condition. Then there's the issue of not feeling like you're a victim of your hair. Your hair is yours. You can choose to do with it what you want, and we're here to support you. So if you have questions or anything like that, please reach out to us. In keeping in mind with the hair washing, letting go of our hair. I know this is a dreaded thing. Nobody wants to lose their length in most cases when they're going to the hairdresser, but it's important to let those dead ends go in hair and life, period. But yes, don't be afraid to get some length cut off when you're going in. Your hair will grow again, assuming it's in healthy condition. And then letting your hair breathe. Braids, wigs, sew-ins, extensions, all of those things are really amazing. They're beautiful, and I am constantly amazed by what we can do with our hair with them. But it's important that at some point in between, you're allowing your hair to breathe. Get some fresh air, give your scalp a break. And most importantly, have fun with your hair. Invest in your self-care and invest in yourself. Try different styles. Be bold with them, experiment with colors with the help of a professional, and just live your best life with your best hair. You know, especially in Finland, I think it's really nice because the way that hair is looked at here, aside from the weird curiosity with our hair, there's freedom to pretty much do what you want with your hair here. And so you shouldn't feel limited. You should be, feel bold, try something. If it doesn't work out, you do something else next time. But these are all ways that you can improve your own well-being, your feel-good, as it relates to your hair. Here's some of our info if you need to get a hold of us or have any questions. I think I've kind of hit my limit here, but hopefully I provided some information for you that is helpful and can maybe open up some discussions within your own circles. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Unfortunately, we didn't have time left for questions, but if somebody here live has a question that they would like to ask Jessica, we could take one question now. If not, Jessica is around, so in this break where we set up for the afternoon session, you might be able to catch her and ask her a few questions. Monica, did we have any questions come up from their live stream? Not right now. Well, thank you so much, Jessica. It's always a pleasure having you be part of Good Hair Day and AFRO AKATEMIA be part of Good Hair Day.
Thank you for having me. Oh, okay. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everybody. Maybe everybody could give themselves a round of applause for making it here live. Also clapping for those far on the stream. It's been great having you for our morning session in English. You have enough time to rush home, catch the live stream in Finnish. There will be a link on our Instagram page and our Facebook event page for the second session, which will be in Finnish. Eli kiitos kaikille, jotka seurasivat myös livestreamin kautta. Tässä on tunnin tauko. Seuraava sessio alkaa kello 15. Ne, jotka on paikan päällä, ehtii kotiin, katsoo livestreamia, ja ne, jotka seuraa, niin voi käydä vaikka lounaalla. Pyydämme teitä pikkuhiljaa poistumaan tonne ulospäin, että sitten puolelta tulee seuraavat takaisin. We'll ask for those who are here present to slowly make their way out. There is a photo booth wall as well, so that those coming for the next session can have a fresh space. Thank you so much.